Interior, podcast studio, day, a singer, songwriter, a filmmaker, director. Enter the frame. Welcome back to The Frame. I am your host, Gregory Romein.
And I'm your host, Felix King.
And today we are going to be talking about the process. I feel like that's part of the psychology that can get you into writer's block is
the perfectionist.
the perfectionist thing where it's like, oh, I don't have anything to write about and this and that. It's like, no, you do. You just don't want to write about it because you have already written it off.
The same can happen in painting too. When you've gotten a painting to a place where you think it's good, you start to be really precious with it, and your brush strokes get unconfident, and you're painting really slowly, and it's like my teachers would always be like, move your brush as fast as you can, and it doesn't matter. If you make a huge mistake, make another mistake over top of it and repaint the whole thing, but don't stop moving your paintbrush, because you're not trying to make a masterpiece. You're trying to paint as fast as you can. And there are no mistakes except for going slow. And then after you get comfortable messing up the painting, then you actually get into a place where you're really painting. But if you're not comfortable messing up the painting, you're not going to be actually doing the thing. It's not going to look like art. It's going to feel constricted, and it's going to feel controlled. So I feel like that's true with almost all types of art, is you have to get to a place where you feel comfortable messing it up, and something happens in that moment when you don't care if you completely destroy this thing that you've been working on for 5 days, where you start doing the thing better than you've ever been able to do it before. You start writing better than you're able to write before, and you don't even care if another human ever sees this thing. You know in that moment that this is the best writing you've ever done, and you don't want to stop doing it. Even if it's finished, you just want to keep going.
Right. I think that's an important thing to get to on your own journey, is just these little creative moments that are just for you, not necessarily selfish or unselfish. It's just, I had spent so long feeling like if I'm going to have to write something, it's need to be this big production, and it needs to be something I can go out and pitch and build a team around, instead of this happened the other day where the girl I'm seeing sent me what I saw as a prompt of how she describes staying up all night. It's 93 degrees in Boston. She has no AC. She's listening to her neighbor's AC condenser kick on, and she's just lying there, and it just kind of staring at the fan that's not working. And it was just prompt idea, okay, and I just went for it and typed it out on my phone. And I had no issue coming up with the idea. This was one of those, the song instantly came, it was there. But then I spent the next hour, 2 hours going, oh, I shouldn't send it. There's grammar mistakes. The punctuation's bad. I'm hearing I won't say their names, but the critical people in my life holding me back from just pressing send for fear of, judgment. And finally I was like, fuck it, I'm sending this off. I like it. And that's all it was. I didn't need to turn that story into a bigger story where younger me would have done that, would have been okay, now I found something. I found this little nugget, and I'm going to get the most out of it as I can. I'm going to, spend the next 3-4 days beating my head against the wall, stressing myself out, building up all this pressure, saying I suck, saying why can't I write a script off this? This is the idea. And that's so toxic, and getting to that stage now where it's just I'm so proud of that little, maybe 200-300 word short vignette, more proud than I am about a 10-page script idea that is never going to see the light of day.
Yeah, I think one, you want to make sure that the creative people's voices in your head are people that are encouraging you to make stupid shit. You want somebody that's well, this is terrible, but I love it. You're on the right track, or develop this idea more, or people that give you positive criticism, that be hey, I just wrote this. I think it's really cool, but it could be garbage. You just have to have that kind of mentality with your art, is I love this painting, but is it actually super ugly? And it's okay to love something yourself and the rest of the world to not. And it's like sometimes when we're putting our art out there, we're asking people to like it. And that's not always a good approach to art. Like, it's totally fine to have books and art and movies that like you love that like most of the world hates and doesn't get. And it's also okay to also want to make stuff at the same time that is sellable and that the masses will like. So sometimes the question is like, I really like this idea, but do you think this is like a sellable idea, or do you think like this is really creative, or is like this just something that I like? And I think that mentality is something I have with music. Like, there's certain things that I just like love in music. And usually most of my students, they have one thing that they're like so in love with. And I'm like, okay, you can love it. You can write as many songs as you want with the banjo. But you personally, your voice with the banjo isn't going to make you any money. That's not wrong. It's just keep loving the banjo and keep learning to love other things, and keep learning like what are the things within the music that can make you money so you can pay the bills, and what are the things that you are going to be obsessed with for life and may not pay your bills, but you can continue to like love them. You can continue trying to figure out how to make money from them, or you can move on and figure out why your love of that can lead you to the love of something else.
You said something at the beginning of this where you're like, you have to find the voice in your head that tells you, that positive reinforcement. And it made me like wonder if you have a specific person from your life who is that voice.
Well, there's several. Yeah, there's several. I think I know, like I have several singer friends that have similar taste in music and know my voice really well, and those are the people that I will send my tracks to, and they can completely decimate my voice and it won't hurt my ego because I know how much they love my voice and I know how much they want me to sound amazing, and they have the vocabulary to tell me what I need to do differently to get my voice to the level that they can hear that it can get to. But those are the only people, and there's maybe 3 of them, that I would actually ask if what they thought of my vocals. And then artistically, I just had like my very first drawing teacher, Ron Mazzellin, who I think I've talked about before. He was an illustrator. He's still alive. I don't know why I said was. He is an illustrator, amazing illustrator. And he really instilled in like everyone in our class that like you can be as creative as you want to be. You can, and he tried to teach us how to like see the world, like how like he was like all art. It doesn't matter if it's music or painting or writing. It's all seeing. It's all, can you see, shapes and texture and color and emotion, and are you observing life, and are you observing, obviously like your ears and smell and all of that, but he was talking about all the senses as seen. And he's like, are you observing interactions? Are you observing movement? Are you and he just like really challenged us to like just walk around and like look at things like deeper than we've ever looked at them. And like there was never like a critical word that came out of his mouth. Everything was like, let me help you do this. Let me show you how to do this. And it's just like so encouraging, and like just like opened my eyes to like how excited you could be about life and how like creative you're allowed to be. And like I started seeing and hearing all art completely differently after that class. So that class in general, just the act of learning to like, this is the main lesson that he taught me, is don't see the symbol of something, see the actual thing. So the way our brains work, when we like are told like fish, you see a shape of a fish, but like when you actually look at like a real fish, they're all very weird shapes. And like when you are told like what color is like the bark of a tree, you think brown, but when you actually look at a tree, it's like white and black and blue and gray and deep green, and sometimes they have no brown on them at all, and like the textures are different, and just like not to see like the innate symbols and things. And like when you see a face, you don't want to see a face, you want to see texture, and you want to see shapes, and you want to see shadows. And like never draw a nose, you are always drawing shapes and values and lines and color. And like that perspective I've applied a lot to like writing a song is like, don't limit yourself by like the symbols that you see in your head. Try to really see something, and that helps you like kill cliches. Like I try to not have anything cliche in my songs unless I'm like trying to do that on purpose. And to try to really say in my songs like what I'm trying to get across. But yeah, he was really influential. And then I don't know, there's just been so many, like, I guess most of the people are like teachers and other artists that are the ones that like stick out in my mind. And then my like, I often like see an older version of myself, or I'll like see myself talking to a younger version of myself, much in the same way that I would like teach a student. I try to like think of like my older self that's already gone through what I'm going through now, and like what advice would I give myself, like if I was 50, what advice would I be trying to tell myself in this moment right now? And I find that very helpful.
I think I'm going to take that from you.
Be the older version and talk to yourself, or like put your current self as like a 5-year-old, and like how would you talk to a 5-year-old? You would be kind, and you would try to like calm them down, and you would try to like encourage them and build them up, and you would approach them as if you know their egos are fragile, and as if they want to like love life and be excited, and you want to like nurture that. And so like we have to do that with ourselves, especially in art, because it can feel really vulnerable to tell your story first of all, and then put it out for the world to hear, and then feel judged by what the world thinks of it. And I think all artists get a lot of respect from me for having to go through it in terms of putting it out into the world and not knowing what's going to happen. Any people in your life that you think of when you're going through the creative process?
I was trying to think of my art teacher's name in middle school, and for the life of me, I can't, but I can picture her so well. As also someone that showed me they cared, that didn't like, you know, pathologize me as being, you know, the rambunctious class clown, the one that doesn't care, that's not paying attention. Like, she could tap into something and saw that I enjoyed whatever activity was, you know, going on in the classroom. And so, like, I appreciate that memory that you brought up. Other than her, I think the next person would have been, I went to school in Florida my senior year. So I moved from Seattle to Florida to play at this sports academy for soccer. And so, like, that was the primary focus and everything. So class was very secondary, but I had a creative writing class. And again, she was, I want to say maybe like one of the substitute teachers that just like had a strong like presence towards me that like I did not feel from other teachers, again being more kind of like hostile type of dynamics where we were on very different pages, where she was like able to see some seed and bring that encouragement and that compassion and instill confidence. And that's the first person who ever, you know, like illuminated to me like, oh, your writing's really interesting. Your writing is really descriptive. It's really, you know, visual, and continue doing this. Like, that was like so foreign to get that type of like response and feedback from any like academic person in my life up until that point. And I think when I was like hearing you talk, it's like, yeah, the process is like, you know, you need to develop that. If you did not have that growing up, like if you didn't have, you know, that support from family, or if you didn't get that in school, if you didn't have like, you know, outside like support, that's damning, you know, like maybe that's part of what's motivating you, you know, like that unique struggle of maybe not having that type of kind of encouragement for what you are really passionate about and care a lot about. And so that's like, I'm going to prove them all wrong type of motivation. But, you know, either be that older self in your mind talking to you now, I think is a brilliant like tactic and just like a good type of like mechanism to develop outside of like the creative process in life.
Yeah, I have a picture of me as like a little kid up in my apartment, and I look at it a lot, and I like every time I do, I remind myself that's that's how you need to talk to yourself, as if you're talking to that kid, because I think in a lot of ways all of us are like fragile and our minds are like a 5-year-old, even though we're in an adult body, and you have to like talk to yourself with the compassion of talking to a 5-year-old, not like you're screaming at an adult man all the time, you know. And the inner conversations are sometimes automatic, and you're talking to yourself really mad, and then you have to remind yourself like, no, this is who I am and this is how I talk to myself. And you can have like this whole like internal conversation to try to change the way you're talking to yourself. And I don't remember who told me that. I think it might have been one of my first therapists, but it might have even just been like a bumper sticker or like a meme or something, but like talk to yourself like you would talk to a child or something. I don't remember where I heard that, but it's definitely been something I've done for a long time. And that's the frame.
That is the frame. Everything inside and outside of the frame.